Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Dyllon Explains Everything Podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking about the popular band 21 Pilots, a little bit of their history, and a little bit of the lore behind their songs. For those of you who are unsubscribed or not following me, please do that, and be sure to let me know that you are enjoying the channel. Also, be sure to reach out to me if you have any ideas, questions, comments. Leave them in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or if you'd rather contact me directly, you can email me at dillonexplaineseverything@gmail.com. Now, without further ado, my name's Dylan, and I'll be explaining everything. Now, I figured I'd start this episode out with a little bit of my personal history with the band 21 Pilots. I first heard about them in 2015, like many people did, with their hit single, Stressed Out, which played on the radio constantly on my way to and from school on the school bus. And I heard about them and brought them up with my brother, who told me that they were a band and not just a singular song that released on the radio. And they had other music too. So I began to listen to more of their music, and it especially became popular when in my church there was a lesson that used the song Guns for Hands. And I really liked that song, so I began listening to the band a lot more and began looking into them. And ever since then, I've been not obsessed, but I really like them. I've got a poster of them on my wall. I've got a couple of vinyls of theirs, a few CDs of theirs. I'm one of their top 0.01% of listeners on Spotify. I've seen them a couple times live. I've kind of spiraled into their fan base. But they're a really cool band. I really like them because of their kind of thoughtful lyrics and lore, as we'll be seeing later. But another big thing is their name. So a lot of people wonder, what's their name? Why is it 21 Pilots if there's only two of them? So the name comes from a story called All My Sons by Arthur Miller. In case the name Arthur Miller sounds familiar to you, he's the guy that wrote The Crucible, that book about how the Red Scare is basically the Salem witch trials, but many years later. He was a pretty famous author, and he wrote the book called All My Sons, or rather a play. And in it details the story of a dude who sold faulty airplane parts and ended up resulting in the death of 21 pilots. So originally the band formed in 2009 with Tyler Joseph, Chris Salai, and Nick Thomas. Tyler Joseph is the lead singer of the band, and not only was he, but he remains to be the lead singer today. He also plays piano and keyboard for the band. Chris Salai was the band's drummer, and Nick Thomas was the bassist. However, in 2011, both Chris Salai and Nick Thomas left the band for personal reasons, and Josh Dunn ended up joining. Josh Dunn became the drummer for the band, and Josh and Tyler became best friends almost immediately, which is part of the band that people like so much, is that they are best friends, so they can be friendly to each other in interviews outside of just a professional capacity. In 2017, the band won the Grammy for Best Pop Duo Performance. They are basically very well known for not just being a pop band, but also an alternative band, alternative rock. They include elements of reggae, R&B, rap, basically most elements. In fact, in their latest album, Scaled and Icy, they even, according to some people, have some more retro-sounding music. So they combine a lot of different genres of music into their albums, but most of the time they focus in on mental health as kind of the theme of their lyrics. Tyler Joseph has been praised as being one of the best, if not the best, lyricists, basically in modern pop music and that kind of genre. He is very poetic in his lyrics and just an amazing writer all around for their lyrics. And Josh Dunn is a very talented drummer, and together they've made a lot of really good music. In fact, they're the first band in history of music to see every song on 2 albums earn gold or platinum awards. They're also the first alternative artist in history to have 2 concurrent top 5 singles in the Billboard Hot 100, and the third rock band act in history to have 2 singles simultaneously chart in the top 5 of the Billboard Hot 100, right behind Elvis and the Beatles. They have also had 10 number 1 songs on the Alternative Songs chart, which is the 4th most number 1 songs on the chart. They're known for a variety of songs, including Stressed Out, Ride, Heathens, and slightly less popular Shy Away, Morph, Chlorine, and many more. Now, before we get into the actual lore behind the band itself, I do want to do our episodic updates, so we're going to start out with the word of the day, which is verisimilitude. 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 It's defined by Oxford as the appearance of being true or real. So it can describe like a farce or an intention or something like that that's not necessarily real, but appears to be. And then our fun trivia fact of the day is that 3 presidents, all founding fathers, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Monroe, all died on the 4th of July. Now, with all that being done, we're going to dive right into the main segment of this episode. We're going to start off with just a brief kind of looking through some of the past albums of 21 Pilots. So they originally started off with their self-titled album, 21 Pilots, back when it was Tyler Joseph, Chris Sale, and Nick Thomas. The album never really took off, and even nowadays, fans agree that it's not necessarily their best work. It does have some really good songs on it, but overall, Tyler's singing wasn't what it is today. They didn't have the funding, nor really the skills that they have now, just because they've progressed as musicians, and Josh Dun wasn't in the band, so it's not necessarily everyone's favorite album. After that, when Josh Dun joined the band and Chris Sale and Nick Thomas left, they released Regional at Best, which was where a lot of really good songs took root, including Guns for Hands, House of Gold, Ode to Sleep, and several more. The problem was that they began doing shows, and Fueled by Ramen picked them up. Fueled by Ramen is a record company, and they picked up 21 Pilots and agreed that Tyler Joseph would retain the rights to the self-titled album, while Fueled by Ramen would get the rights to Regional at Best. They stopped producing Regional at Best, and it's no longer found on Spotify or YouTube, at least legally. Several copies have been made of the album, and several people have copies of it. But for now, Fueled by Ramen retains quite a tight control over that, especially their parent corporation, Warner Music. So then after that, the band made Vessel, which was arguably their first big album. It included the modern versions of House of Gold and Ode to Sleep and many other songs that they're kind of known for, like Guns for Hands. And that one kind of put them on the map. It didn't necessarily make them popular, but it put them on the map. And at that time, they were still writing very complex songs, but their songs were songs. They weren't stories. That changed, or at least started to, with Blurryface. Blurryface was their next album, released in 2015, and it had a bit of lore behind it. So the big thing was the actual cover showed 9 dots of different colors. And eventually, each of the dots would be lined up to specific people, but for now, when the album was released, we didn't quite know what was going on. We did know Blurryface was the name of a person, or rather an idea. Blurryface was, in essence, the insecurities and mental health problems that the lead singer Tyler Joseph had. It kind of represented those, and whenever you hear a deep voice harmonizing with Tyler throughout the album and throughout future albums, that is Blurryface for the most part. Now, at this time, we did have a small mention of some people known as bishops, which appeared in the song Doubt off of Blurryface, and mentioned a line about bishops. And we didn't fully know what this was talking about for a really long time. That is until Trench. Now, Trench came out in 2018 and has had several pretty good hits like Chlorine, Jumpsuit, which was one of the top alternative rock songs at the time, and several more. And this introduced the whole lore of the world that Tyler had built. Tyler and Josh, but mainly Tyler. The world is known as Dima. Now, Dima is a city. The city is run by 9 bishops, represented by the 9 dots on the Blurryface cover. In fact, those represent a map of the city. It has 9 towers in the center, one for each bishop, and is surrounded by the actual city itself. And on the outside are things called neon gravestones. We'll get to that in a second. Dima is run by these bishops, and they practice a religion known as vialism. Now, vialism is basically evil. They believe in like weird rituals, brainwashing the public, the normal stuff. They also this is a very dark meaning, but it is kind of what it is. The bishops believe in suicide, specifically being an honorable thing. So they try and convince their citizens to do it for reasons unknown at this time. So they're definitely the bad guys. Well, who's the good guy? This guy named Clancy. He is played by Tyler Joseph in this world. Clancy leads a group known as the Banditos. The Banditos kind of resist Dima and the bishops. They wear yellow as opposed to Dima's signature red color, and the bishops themselves cannot see the color yellow. It's a sign of resistance against them. Now, Clancy wrote several journals about his escape from Dima several times. He would lead his fellow Banditos, including Josh Dunn's character, who is still nameless, and he would lead them away to a trench, which is known as Trench, hence the name of the album. In his journals, which are found online, I believe they are still up, Clancy details his fight with Dima and basically the reason he wants to leave and how evil it is and all these things. Now, you might be thinking, what the frick is going on here? Like, what even is this? Why is Dima a thing? Why is it weird? What's happening? What on earth is going on? Well, let me answer none of those questions real quick. Each of the bishops has a different name, and you can actually get those names from 9 songs off of Blurryface that line up with the 9 dots on the cover. There's also a map of Dima that was published online, where each of the towers have the name of the bishop that corresponds to them, and if you line it up with the Blurryface cover, then it actually gives you where the names are in the songs, or rather which songs have those names, and you can find them. For example, Keon's is in the song Heavy Dirty Soul when he says choke on smoke. You can put the letters together and get Keon's. There's several others. The only one that isn't in there is Nico. Nico is kind of the leader of the bishops, and his song is Stressed Out. So a lot of people have attributed Blurryface to him. However, it is pretty much the consensus that Blurryface is a collection of the bishops. Now, the reason this all has meaning, I promised I would get there and answer your questions eventually. All of Dima is a metaphor for mental health issues. Dima itself is basically a mental health issue. It keeps the main character, Clancy, captive and makes him want to die and things like that. It represents the negative thoughts inside of Tyler's head and the war that he faces against trying to leave those negative thoughts behind. And several different meanings can be gotten out of this, but they all kind of center around that idea. Now this brings us back to those neon gravestones I talked about. I mentioned that the bishops thrive off of the citizens committing suicide. That's what the neon gravestones represent. Metaphorically, neon gravestones, which are mentioned prominently in the song Neon Gravestones are a metaphor for basically gravestones that are attractive. Neon attracts the eye. Neon colors do, at least. Think about like Las Vegas. So having a gravestone that is neon is attractive. You're being attracted to a grave. So it represents suicide. The song specifically talks about the glorification of suicide within news and popular culture. But overall, the neon gravestones in Dima represent vialism and the whole idea that the bishops want the citizens to commit suicide, once again for an unknown reason. Now, all hope is not lost. We do have someone known as the Good Bishop, Keon's. I mentioned him before. He's known as the Good Bishop because he actually treats the Banditos nicely when he captures them, which might sound a bit stupid because he's capturing them, so why does he care how he treats them? But he will come up later, so I promise you it's important to know Keon's is the Good Bishop. We also have a friend named Ned. Ned is a little creature that appears in the Chlorine music video, and fans love him. His name is actually an acronym, and we'll get a little more into what it means later, but basically at this time we knew it stood for Neural Expansion Device. That's all we had. It was on the side of some hoodies, so we figured it was important to know. Little do we know, it was very important for later. Now, the next piece of music to come out after Trench was Level of Concern. Now, Level of Concern came out in 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic, and was kind of reflecting upon that time and talking about basically how everyone was kind of hoping that it would eventually end and wondering if their friends and family and loved ones really still cared about them during that time and things like that. It became fairly popular. However, the important thing isn't the song itself, it is what happened with the song. The band did an Easter egg hunt across several websites that they controlled and several social media websites and stuff like that. They did an Easter egg hunt where they had several different codes. These are called the LOC, or Level of Concern codes. And they led to this weird-looking TV where there was this live stream going on, right? Or they didn't lead there, but they were led to by there. This weird live stream went on for a really long time and just displayed random messages that no one really understood. It was like they were very cryptic and weird. But when you got all the codes from various different sources and put them into this special website, you got a very special video. In fact, you got several different things and files and whatnot. But the first few people got a special thumb drive delivered to them that had a video. Now, technically, Tyler and Josh have said that they don't want the video getting out. It wasn't supposed to get out. So I'm not going to say exactly what happens in the video. I, for one, didn't get it, but I've seen versions of it. In the background of the video, when Tyler's talking, there is a TV, and it displays in a very cryptic code that they have revealed before. It displays the words CLANCYISDEAD. Clancy is dead. And this is what we were left with for a long time. Now, a little bit later, 21 Pilots released a Christmas song called Christmas Saves the Year. Once again, kind of talking about coronavirus and wanting to kind of be home for the holidays and stuff like that. Now, in the video, for the thumbnail for the video and the cover and all that stuff, there's a Christmas tree in the background with a present that's labeled "Psy is propaganda." And no one knew what the frick Psy was. Like, this was just some weird thing, and we were all like, what could this stand for? Like, a Psy is a weapon, I guess. What does this mean? Eventually, we understood when they announced an album, Scaled and Icy. Now, it came out at this time that Dima had somehow taken over the website that Clancy's journals were posted on, and they were publishing propaganda to it, various messages and things like that. Scaled and Icy was their ultimate piece of propaganda. It was an entire album devoted to supporting them, written by 21 Pilots. So at this point we get a little bit of like breaking the fourth wall and different things like that. But the key here is that Scaled and Icy, if you rearrange the letters, spells Clancy is dead. So we kind of see like all hope is lost. The Bishops won. They killed Clancy. They've taken over his websites. And this is all we've got. Now, that being said, Scaled and Icy is also a shortened version of Scaled Back and Isolated, which is how Tyler Joseph felt while writing the album during COVID-19. And the symbol for it, which is a Psy, like the weapon, is a symbol meaning east is up, which was a common saying during the Trench era. That was basically a way to map out the city. Now, this album did reveal quite a bit, especially since Clancy eventually started writing his journals. But before that, there was a live stream. In order to announce the album and release to everyone, on the day that it came out, 21 Pilots, on May 21st, did a live stream. Now, in this live stream, we see a lot of weird stuff, including two of the hosts being very strange. At some point, they kind of decay like corpses. It's really weird. But we got a lot of cool music, so that was cool. And everyone was wondering, what is the lore? What is going on here? And listening to the album, we got a few things, but not a lot. Same thing with watching the videos. Eventually, it came out exactly what was going on. So number one, the dragon on the cover, his name's Trash. He represents basically the creativity of Tyler, especially as he was working on the album. And we get the Clancy journals again. Now, these journals basically detailed what happened during the Saturday and Outside music videos. So, here's exactly what was going on. Clancy got captured after Trench. He basically wanted to go back to Dima. Escaping felt strange to him. He didn't know what was going on. He would rather be in the known terror than the unknown. And so he went back to Dima and began working for the bishops, basically. They put him in a room and told him to write songs. So he did. He wrote music. He wrote Scaled Nicey. Then, in order to boost the morale of the city and as a large propaganda movement, they asked him to make a live stream experience. And he did. And they used it, and it worked amazingly for them. So, they said, you're going to do more for us. They had an annual festival for the people who would commit suicide and join the neon gravestones. It was almost like a ritualistic type thing. And the way they got to this special place where they were going to do it is by a submarine. So, Clancy was put in the submarine, where he would be transported there, along with Josh Dunn, his character, anyways. Now, these bishops weren't the actual bishops, the bishops that went with him. It says in the journal that he recognized that they weren't the actual bishops. But along the way, Trash comes along and breaks the submarine. And that's it. That's the end of the Saturday music video. So what happens? Well, we go to the Outside music video. They arrive on an island, and we get a flash over to Dima, where we can only assume Keon's is being killed by the rest of the bishops. And as he dies, so too does Trash, which is interesting. They're connected. But how? Well, Clancy continues on the island, and they find Ned and a bunch of baby Neds, which is adorable. And they find out that Ned's horns can be removed from him and used to take control of a body, specifically dead ones for the most part. This is how they were able to control people. This is how the bishops were able to control dead bodies. This is how they made the hosts for the live stream. This is why they wanted people to die, was so that they could control them with these horns that they were harvesting from Ned. So, Clancy uses these horns and gets a hold of Keon's dead body and lights fire to the temple at Dima, basically starting a war with them. Now, at the end, all the bishops converge on the islands that they are on and get ready for their war. And that's it. That's the end. The way that Keon's was able to control Trash was through the horns. So when he died, he lost that connection, but allowed Clancy to take over and begin the battle. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed that episode. I hope that you guys check out 21 Pilots. They're pretty great. And also be sure to let your friends know about this channel, and be sure to share it with them and just spread the word to your friends, your family, your computer, whatever. Just make sure that this stays afloat if you want to listen to more. And like I said, please like and follow and subscribe and share and all that stuff. And just let me know if you have any comments or anything by emailing me or leaving a comment. Next episode, I'll be reading another story. I don't quite have the story worked out as of yet, but it's like 4 weeks before I have to worry about it. By the time, like, when I'm making this. When you see it, it'll be a week away. But and then after that, we're going to analyze some of 21 Pilots' lyrics, specifically their song Chlorine. And then after that, we're going to be coming to the long-awaited Dyllon Explains Everything, where I go through the history of Dyllon Explains Everything and its effect on me and podcasts and why I chose to do a podcast. So I hope you all enjoy this, and please just stay tuned for the next episode every Saturday at noon. And with all that being said, my name's Dylan, and I explain everything.